Good evening to those of us in North America, and good morning to our sisters and colleagues from Asia. My name is Boyoung Lee, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of the Faculty and Professor of Practical Theology at the Iliff School of Theology in Denver, Colorado. This webinar, Introducing Asian Women's Theological Networks, is sponsored by PAN-AUTUMN. PAN-AUTUMN stands for Pacific, Asian, and North American Asian Women in Theology and Ministry. And this year, we are celebrating our 35th anniversary. To know more about our work, please visit our website, panautumn.org, follow us on Twitter @PANAUTUMN, and look at our YouTube channel where you can find the recordings of our past 4 webinars, as well as other helpful resources. Please also consider supporting our work by your donation, and you can do it online by visiting our website. Also, I would like to thank you to the Volunteers of America for providing this platform, and Senior Vice President of Moral Injury Work, Dr. Rita Nakashima-Brock, generously offered this platform. Also, they are providing our IT service. In this webinar tonight and this morning, we will introduce several Asian women's theological networks, which I am sure will show us how Asian theological women work creatively and collaboratively, honoring Asian women's lived experiences and promote their dignity and rights. During the presentation of our speakers, please put your comments and questions in the chat box. The Reverend Dr. Kristen Pear will monitor the chat box and bring those questions to presenters. Now, let me have the honor of introducing our first speaker, Reverend Showin Chen from Taiwan. She is the coordinator of Asian Women's Research Center for Culture and Theology, AWRC, based in Taichung, Taiwan. She is a minister of the Presbyterian Church in Taiwan and has been a local church pastor and a hospital chaplain before her appointment to AWRC in 2018. She earned her MDiv from Tainan Theological College and Seminary and a THM from the Methodist Theological University in South Korea. Reverend Chen.
Good evening and good morning, everyone. I'm Showin, and I'm honored to be here to introduce AWRC to you. AWRC stands for Asian Women's Resource Center for Culture and Theology. Let me ask you one question first. What were you doing in 1987? And where were you in 1987? In 1987, there was a group of first generation of Asian feminist theologians. They gathered together in Singapore. And during that Asian Women Theological Conference, they felt a need to form a platform for Asian women to reflect their faith and think theologically, also to articulate the theological reflection. So they felt the need to form a group of people and organization like this. In next year, the AWRC office was inaugurated in Hong Kong formally. That is why the AWRC was formed. And AWRC has been promoting Asian feminist liberation theologies since then. Every year, we now publish 2 issues of journal in God's image, or you call it IGI. IGI was even earlier published 5 years earlier than AWRC was born. IGI is the oldest existing feminist theological journal in Asia. As you can see the PPT, there are our older issues And this one, the middle one, is the present issue. It is the IGI serves a theological reflection and the resource material to women who are engaged in theologizing in daily lives and the students of theology. It is also fostering and promoting Asian women feminist theologies. So this is a journal to encourage Asian women to articulate their theological reflections from their lives. The specialty of this IGI is to even encourage review of books and articles and the prayers and the poetry or literature. It is to help the Asian women from their experiences. They can think and share what is their feminist theological thinking to this issue and to share with more Asian people. Besides publishing IGI, we also hold feminist theological workshop. In 2019, we held a feminist theological workshop in Taiwan. That time we invite Limatula and Hisako and Christina to be the speakers. And this workshop was held in Taiwan with 18 participants from 8 countries. Some of them are theological trained students. Also, many of them are not. Because we believe for theological education, it's not only taught in the campus of seminary. Also, we hope the theological thinking and ideas can be known and practiced for more lay people. I would like to share some feedbacks of the workshop. After the workshop, one participant, actually she's a pastor's wife, she told us after joining this workshop, the feminist, to her, feminist theology is not something merely only to women, but it is something for her can bring justice and work for all human beings. There is another young theological student who responded as like this. She said this workshop is a thought-provoking workshop. And that time she asked herself, how can she allow all creations to be what they are meant to be? So through holding workshops like this, we hope to awaken and accompany more women in Asia to start the journey with the feminist theological thinking. Besides publishing IGI journal and the feminist workshop, we also like to encourage you to get these books and take a look of these books. These books are models of Asian feminist theologies. These books are not recently published, but they are very basic and classic for women who are interested in feminist theologies. So we also have a sale price for everybody. If you are interested, we would like to invite you to check our website. These books are Introduction to Asian Feminist Theologies. Also, it's a series. The second book is Telling Her Story, Introduction to an Asian Feminist Rereading of History. And the book 3 is Leadership, Power, and Authority. Also, Introduction to Asian Feminist Perspective on Religions. 4 books is a series, and we encourage you to take a look and read it. We also add a book, Transforming Attitudes Towards Sexuality. So it will be a book, a good bargain for everybody. And I also like to introduce what we are now doing in Taichung office. As you can see on the PPT, there is a group of people who are reading actually articles from IGI to promote the feminist theological perspectives or thinking or ideas. Somehow for me, it's not so easy in Taiwan, because in our country, basically we don't speak English. So we have the IGI article translated in Chinese, and I invite local lay people who are pastors' wives or just young ladies, and even missionaries from abroad, and the young pastors join together to join the IGI monthly reading club. So every month we read 1 article or 2 articles to learn what it is and to share from our experiences what we felt. It is very practical and interesting. After this collection of Chinese translated IGI articles, we are now in the preparation of publish the translated Chinese IGI into a book. We hope to encourage more Chinese readers, whether they are theologically trained or only congregations. They can join the ministry of feminist theological perspective together. So this is what we are doing, the reading club. I also encourage you in your local communities or groups, you can apply this to your group. And secondly, we are recently we also sent for our call for papers on December 2021 IGI issue. It is with the focus on post-COVID-19 world. As we know, this COVID-19 world is heavily influenced everybody's life. So we hope to collect every one of your contributions to enrich this article and give reflection and hope to all of us when we are facing future. And last one is, I would like to invite you to join us, our organization, for what we are doing. You can support us by joining the membership or subscribe to the journal IGI. And this is the website, our website on the PPT. We welcome you also find a time and check our website. There are more information on what we have already done and what we are currently doing. And also we would like to hear if you have any suggestions to us. It will be very precious opinion and suggestions for what we are going to plan in the near future. Thank you for the opportunity to share our organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Chen. Our Showin, In God's Image has been and still is a very important resource for my own theological work too. Our next speaker is the Reverend Jung Grace Moon. She's a program coordinator of the Christian Conference of Asia and an ordained pastor of the Presbyterian Church of Korea. Christian Conference of Asia is an ecumenical organization that promotes mission and unity among Asian churches. Its headquarters is in Thailand. Reverend Moon works to promote women's dignity and the use of Asian resources in doing theology. Reverend Moon, welcome.
Good morning and good evening, dear friends. I am Grace Moon from the Christian Conference of Asia. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to greet you on behalf of the Christian Conference of Asia. And I express sincere appreciation and thanks to the organizers of this webinar for the invitation extended to me. Let me shortly introduce Christian Conference of Asia to you. Christian Conference of Asia is a regional ecumenical organization representing 16 national councils and 100 churches from 21 countries in Asia, founded in 1957. For the last 6 decades, the CCA has existed as an organ and a forum of continuing cooperation among the churches and national Christian bodies coming from different ecclesiological traditions and backgrounds in Asia, mainly focusing on 3 goals: the unity of the churches, joint action in mission and fellowship among the churches, and relevant and responsive move to the challenges of the changing societies in Asia. From the start of CCA history, CCA has endeavored to develop women's consciousness and women's theologizing work rooted in Asian context. The 6th General Assembly of CCA in 1977 made a meaningful theological articulation on women's status and discrimination of women in various levels of the societies, which marked the beginning of a period of theological awakening for Asian women. Let me read a part of the statement. Men and women are forced into limiting roles from birth and are then conditioned by words, custom, attitude, and education. Even though Christ restored the image of women, the church consciously and unconsciously still refuses to accept the real status of women. It has almost completely disregarded the wholeness which Christ has brought about. And also the Asian Women's Forum, who met in 1981, again put forward an official request to the CCA to be more open and responsive to women's concern in Asia. However, the real situation of women in Asia does not have much difference in the past and the present. Asian women are still face gender-based discrimination and left out being vulnerable from all forms of violence in the community. Therefore, CCA has made efforts to play a crucial and instrumental role in promoting ecumenical formation awareness, education, and capacity enhancement in promoting Asian women's theology, leadership development, and awareness of gender justice. And this effort is very valid and important to equip Asian Christian women. CCA has been conducting women doing theology consultations and leadership development programs, especially where the Christianity is the minor religion and women have less access to formal theological training. For example, Laos is a landlocked and long-time isolated country in Asia, and all religious activities were banned for decades. And only in recent years, the country has experienced comparatively more religious freedom. So CCA has been conducting women leadership development training for the church women of Lao Evangelical Church. And also for last several years, CCA has organized the theological trainings for the teachers of Bible schools located inside the refugee camp on Thailand-Myanmar border. There are 9 refugee camps on the Thai-Myanmar border, where refugees and undocumented migrants are mostly Karen ethnic group fled from civil conflicts and persecution in Myanmar. These Karen Christians have their strong sense of Karen ethnicity and Christian faith. and they always built their churches in Bible schools inside the refugee camps. As most of the Bible school teachers are self-trained and need more theological training, CCA has been organizing the theological trainings for the Bible school teachers for last several years. In 2016, CCA initiated a new advocacy movement titled Ecumenical Action to Combat Violence Against Women, which is to sensitize and mobilize the Asian Christian women to actively engage for actions in peace building and prevention of violence against women. So far, CCA has conducted programs in Laos, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, where Christian women have a quite high risk of forced marriage, conversions, and forced charges under the blasphemy laws. CCA has been present here in Asia, providing an ecumenical platform for women's voice. With the initiative of CCA, Asian Ecumenical Women's Assembly, the Asia's first historic women's gathering was held at Hsinchu, Taiwan in November 2019, attended by more than 250 churchwomen from Asia and around the globe. And I do believe CCA will continue to present here as a space and a voice of women. The following are ongoing CCA's actions and programs to uphold the dignity of women in Asia. You can read shortly. Since the beginning of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic crisis has created a situation with a devastating impact on women, such as maternal deaths, unmet needs for family planning, jobless and less income causing great risk of falling into poverty. The lockdown in several Asian countries have left women more vulnerable to domestic violence, which is unheard and unseen from outside. Another serious trend in pandemic is an increase of human trafficking in Asia, pushing women and children into forced labor and sex trafficking. For example, the India-Nepal border is known as one of the busiest human trafficking gateways in the world. So CCA conducted 2 webinars on women's issues in Asia to talk about the issues and challenges faced by women under the pandemic and the response of churches in ensuring women's safety and needs in the time of crisis. Asian women and women-related organizations should come together to cooperative actions to empower women leadership and capacity in the church and society, to theologize our life stories, to combat all forms of violence against women, and also to combat the spread of virus, but also to tackle its profound consequences on women. CCA has a solid network of ecumenical women in Asia, as well as with YWCA, World Student Christian Federation, Asian Women's Resource Center, International Committee for the Fellowship of Listcoin, Asian Church Women's Conference, and WCC. Through this network, Christian women in Asia used to create a space to articulate their concerns and contribute their theological and leadership skills to the church and societies. For example, in the 80s and 90s, these women organizations used to coordinate numerous theological programs to provide valuable platforms to empower Asian women leadership and also to develop Asian feminist theology. However, I fear that somehow we have lost this valuable legacy, and there's a serious gap in our interconnectedness and relationship. And also we witness very much weakened women's network and cooperation and weakened women leadership among ourselves, especially in Asia. So how can we revitalize the global and regional network of Christian women in Asia and beyond? How can we assert our ecumenical women's action together? How can we advocate and campaign for women's rights with a collective voice? These questions might be our task given to us, and we need to share our wisdom and strength to make ways before us. Let me conclude my presentation with the quotes from the communique of Asian Ecumenical Women's Assembly, which met in last year at Hsinchu, Taiwan. We dream of a world free from any form of discrimination and exploitation. We dream of a world without wars and wars. We dream and work for a world in which all people, creatures, and the earth will flourish. We stand in solidarity with all those who experience violence and abuse. We stand in solidarity with women who experience inequality in churches, workplaces, families. We stand in solidarity with all those affected by climate change, including the earth and all creatures. Please remember our sisters in Asia, in every corner, in every street, in every village. Spare your ears to hear their stories and also their cries. And let us stand in solidarity with them together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Moon, and also for your leadership with such a brave and significant work. Our third speaker is Dr. Mary Mien Yuen. She is a professor of social ethics at the Holy Spirit Seminary College of Theology and Philosophy in Hong Kong, and the coordinator. And she is also coordinator of Ecclesia of Women in Asia, AWRC, which is a pan-Asian movement of Catholic women doing theology. She is a member of the Asian and Oceania Regional Committee of the Catholic Moral Theologians Network, called the Catholic Theological Ethics of the World Church, and the author of Solidarity and Reciprocity with the Migrants in Asia, Catholic and Confucian Ethics in Dialogue. Welcome, Dr. Yuen.
I would like to thank Penautumn to give me the chance of sharing the work of Ecclesia of Women in Asia with you. Before that, I would also like to share a little bit about the background of this group. Ecclesia of Women in Asia, we also call it EVA, is a forum of feminist Catholic women doing theology in Asia. It was conceived in 2002. Before this, some Catholic sisters were also active in the network of women theologians from both the Catholic and Protestant churches since 1980s, but the number was very small. Comparatively, Protestant women theologians were more active. But in 2002, about 55 women theologians from all over Asia gathered in Bangkok for a 5-day conference entitled Ecclesia of Women in Asia, Gathering the Voices of the Silence. Since then, a theological forum among Asian Catholic women was established. In the keynote address of this gathering, Evelyn, an Indian nun and one of the founders of EVA, noted that the idea for the organization was given birth a year earlier in India as an Asian theological conference held to reflect on the document Ecclesia in Asia. That is a document about after the Asian Synod held in Rome. She said that the experience of the near invisibility of women at the Indian conference revealed the stark reality that Asian Catholic women theologians were either not known or they was very small in number. So in view of this, the idea of establishing a network to increase women's visibility came up to her mind, and a few other active members of the Asian Church also involved in this. So this was to make women's voices heard and to claim their rightful place and space in the church. This led to the birth of EVA. And the name of Ecclesia of Women in Asia was an idea of Evelyn, inspired by Caruana's Church of Women themselves. So after this first conference, the participants tried to think, is it only a once-off event, or how the participants can continue this effort So a continuing committee was set up, and the first coordinator was Dr. Agnes Brasso from Philippines, and a coordinating team was also formed, which include an assistant coordinator, a secretary, a treasurer, and 2 or 3 consultants. This is to make the group sustainable, letting the members to continuing the work of EVA. EVA's vision is committed to the formation of inclusive and just ecclesial communities and societies by doing theology from Asian women's perspectives, the recognition of Asian Catholic women as equal partners in the life of the Church. And our mission is to encourage and assist Catholic women in Asia to engage in research, reflection, and writing from a feminist perspective towards doing theology that is enculturated and contextualized in Asian realities, builds on the spiritual experience and practice of the socially excluded, try to promote mutuality and the integrity of creation, and also commit to dialogues with feminist movements, other disciplines, Christian denomination, and religious faith. Most of our members are from the academy. Some are teaching in universities or seminaries or other institutions which trained women or men for ministry or theological education. And some other members belong to religious congregation and are actively involved in the local churches and grassroots organization. EVA hopes to bridge the non-academic women and academic women doing theology and synergize the grassroots experiences and intellectual work in order to evolve a relational feminist hermeneutics of Asia. So because of this, we have a partial arm of EVA in Myanmar, that's MIWA. Its members are active in grassroots work that mainly involves around conscientizing and assisting women to assert their rights, for example, assisting women who are victims of domestic abuse. It is a way to liberate women from enslaving sociocultural systems and other systems in life that need emancipation and empowerment. And one of the main activities of EVA is the organizing of a biennial conference. EVA tried to invite Catholic women theologians to pull in their power and potential to evolve a theology that is distinctively feminine, Asian, and Catholic. And in the conference, we also invite new scholars to share the themes of their dissertation. So you can see these are some of the conference we have in the past. One's in Vietnam and another one, most recent one's in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. So these are all the themes of our conference, from the first one to the most recent one, which was held early this year. There are some themes who are more in general, like the first one, gathering the voices of the silence, or the second one, the 21st century women still claiming their space. And there are some more specific to investigate certain themes or topic, like body and sexuality, marriage and family, practicing peace, feminist cyberethics, or about food, foodscape beyond the food environments, and also displacement and disqualification about migrants and refugees in Asia. So after the conference, we tried to select some presentations and doing peer review, and then try to revise the papers and then publish an anthologies. So these are the books we have published so far. 8 books after the conferences, and one upcoming is on the most recent conference, which will be published next year or 2022. And in each conference, we try to launch our books. So these are the book launching events. We hope that apart from So apart from publishing these books that are the works of our members can be shown to the church, we also want to promote these works through our own network, like sending the books in the libraries, especially in the Asian universities and seminaries, so that more people can know about the work of women theologians. And in the conference, we also try to share the works of individual members in which the books have been recently published. And during the conference, usually we have a session, half day or one day, to conduct dialogue with some NGOs or women, feminist or women's movement. We hope to, through this dialogue, to engage in the real life stories of women and try to integrate them in our theological works. So in the past, we have visited like an organic community market and a farm during the conference of discussing food and distribution in Asia. And then, like the most recent one, we also invite some workers or refugees or women migrants from other countries who stay in Asia now to share their experiences. And we also have liturgies and prayer during our conference to show the cultural characteristic. So we hope to make our liturgy and prayer more creative. And apart from academic writing, we also try to tell women's story through arts and poems. So this is one of the example that one of our members who are really good in making dolls, and she tried to integrate them with some poems written by herself and other people that make the dolls speak. Usually these are about the grassroots stories of Asian women and men. And in the more recent conferences, EVA tried to extend our theological conversation beyond Asia through video conference, with institutes in the United States and Europe. So these are some of the video conference. And in the past, we have made contact with some institution in the United States. And these are some of the hosting institution. And we want to try to expand our network, but also because of the time zone, we have to arrange the time, so we cannot expand too much. But through this video conference, we want to make our conversation also to share with our partners, our colleagues, so that we can deepen our theology with other countries. And EVA also seek to reach out and join other groups such as the International Network of Societies for Catholic Theology. This can provide larger platforms and space for the silence or even the unheard to articulate stories and bring this into conversation. And we have a website, so you're most welcome to visit our website to show all the information, our past conferences, and all the books we have published. There are also some news about our conference, call for papers, and news from the individual members. Finally, I hope to stress that the starting point of Asian feminist theology and women ministry is always women's experiences, letting women tell their own stories, especially the neglected and marginalized women. And apart from Christian texts, we also employ local resources such as our own myth and stories, folk stories, religious and cultural traditions, philosophical traditions, and we try to integrate this with the biblical text and integrate our spirituality. We emphasize linking theory to practice. We don't want to just do armchair theology or theory, and hoping to shift from academic center to a more liberative action orientation. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yuen. Personally, I'm very grateful for Eva's anthologies that brings much needed Catholic women's voices from scholarship to activists and lay women's voices. So thank you so much. Our last speaker is Reverend Dr. Limatula Longkumer. She's a professor of pastoral theology in the field of Christian education and feminist theology. She serves as the dean in the Department of Research in the Senate of Serampore College in India. The research department is in charge of a PhD and DMin programs. She is an active member of the Association of Theologically Trained Women in India. Welcome, Dr. Longkumer.
Thank you, Pan Adam, and also the moderator for giving me this privilege to share something about what women are doing in India. I think among the panelists, I can say that the topic assigned to country-wise, we don't find it organization, but I think what you have given us or given to me is to share from India. That is, I think, very much a great privilege for us to share. I must to share something on the Association of Theological Education Trained Women in India, as well as the feminist movement. And therefore, I have made the theme like this, Feminist Theology Movement in India, because it is not only the AWRC, but there are also many, many theological movements in India because of the vast country. As you know that Indian map is very vast country. It consists of many cultures, many races, indigenous people, and also many colored people, black people, and this is what the India is all about. Therefore, women's experiences and theologizing process are also diverse, and also lot of differences in our experiences of doing theology. And therefore, I will be sharing, just highlighting some of the important movements apart from the AWRC. And as I said, that India is a vast country with more than 1.3 billion population, where 48% are women. So a country with multiracial, caste, class, cultures, religions, languages, ethnic tribes like indigenous peoples, Dalits, Adivasis, etc. Christians are a minority group with only 2.3%. So, it's a complex society. Gap between rich and the poor is very sharp. Rural-urban divides, upper, lower caste or outcast people. That is, in general, the context of, people of India. Women exist in a caste and patriarchal society, and therefore women are in a disadvantaged position due to caste, gender, and sex. So that's why crimes against women, injustices and exploitations against women are too immense in India. I think this is what we can see, girl-child issue. And many other issues are included when we look at the women's problems in India. So feminist theology movement in India, two factors have contributed for emergence of feminist consciousness in India. One is women's movement for nationalism and political freedom during India's independence movement, where many housewives came out and supported for India's freedom from British colonizers. Second is women's movement for liberation and liberation theologies, particularly in the West in 1960s and 70s, influenced women in India. And so it has conscientized women to assert their rights in the church and society. This has provided the critical context for Christian women to articulate and challenge the traditions and practices of the church and society where injustices are meted out to women in terms of participations and leadership sharing. Feminist theologizing process is diverse, more differences than commonalities in India due to multi-context of India. So women's experiences are diverse and different from context to context, from region to region, from race to race, or caste to caste. Therefore, many theologies from diverse perspectives are emerging. So types of, feminist theologies movement, we can say, number one, Indian women theology, middle class or caste educated women theologians advocated feminist theology on behalf of all women since 1970s. And this is how the educated middle class feminist theologians initiated the feminist theology movement in India. Second is Dalit women theology advocated by Dalit women. I think Dalit means they are the outcast of the caste system in India, and they are marginalized people, very poor people, and exploited in many levels. And so many Dalit women theologians are coming forward and developing Dalit women theology from their own experiences, from their own context. Third, tribal women theology, because they are called indigenous women, but in India, we're not allowed to call us indigenous, so we say tribal. They are the indigenous women theology. Mostly we can find in the Northeast Indian map and also in the central India. And so here the indigenous women are also developing our own experiences as women theologians, as theological movement. Fourth is Adivasis. Adivasis means it is also indigenous in Indian language term, Indian Sanskrit. And this Adivasis women theology movement you'll find in the central Indian map. People belong to central India. So indigenous people trying to develop. So second, third, fourth categories. These three groups belong to poor, marginalized, and indigenous groups, advocating their own contextual theology since 1990s from their own contextual realities and experiences, because women's experiences is the starting point of doing theology. Now I want to come to Association of the Theologically Trained Women in India. In short, we call it the ATWI. The Association of Theologically Trained Women in India, ATWI, started in 1979. The ATWI was formed at the initiation of Shanti Solomon of the Asian Church Women's Conference. She was working in the Asian Church Women's Conference at the time with the assistance of the whoever of Gurukul Theological College, Chennai. Whoever was a professor from Germany, and so these two persons initiated this ATWI movement in India. As we all know, Shanti Solomon is very popular because she was the founder of the Fellowship of the Least Quaint, which is now a global, international, and ecumenical prayer movement that was began in 1956. So Shanti Solomon was the one that who really initiated this Association of Theologically Trained Women in India in 1979. The ATWI, the first conference was held at Gurukul, Chennai in 1979. I'm sorry that I could not collect the pictures because in India, because of the COVID-19, all the educational institutions are locked down, including even the library. And I don't have, all these materials with me. so I cannot show you any images. In the initial stage, the ATWI was under the All India Council of Christian Women, but later it became an autonomous body, and therefore now it is functioning as an autonomous body. This is an association formed by women theologians in India. It is a theological movement formed by women theologians. Objectives of the ATWI, especially in the beginning, in the initial stage. 1, to encourage women for studying theology and to support ordained women in ministry and pastors' wives, because training the pastor's wife was also found that very important. To help the theologically trained women of India to explore ways and extend possible participation in the total life and mission of the church. Third, to focus the attention of the churches on the presence of the theologically trained women among them and to recognize their potential, that is in the leadership positions. 4, to encourage the theologically trained women of India to organize themselves into an All India Theologically Trained Women Association and to develop strategies for meeting their needs. So that's how, with these objectives, ATWI was formed. ATWI is a member of the Board of Theological Education of the Synod of Srirampur College now, and also a member of the National Council of Churches in India. So this is the way that ATWI is functioning in India in many levels, helping the women, raising the voices in many of the emerging issues. Now, objectives and purpose of ATWI has broadened to include social, cultural, economic, religious, ecological, and political justice for all from women's perspectives by organizing seminars and workshops. In the past, they raised even funds to support women theological students, financial support. This is how ATWI has been functioning in many ways, helping out the women. The first national, so that is about the ATWI, beginning in objectives. Now, one national conference was held, which is very, very important for Indian context. First national conference towards the theology of womanhood, women's perspective was held in Bangalore, South India in November 1984 at the initiative of the Ecumenical Association of Third World Theologians, ETHOT, Asian Women's Commission, was organized by the All India Council of Christian Women of NCCI, the Association of Theologically Trained Women in India, and also Catholic women. So this is the way that ATWI was very ecumenical in many ways, connecting, collaborating with many of the ETHOT women's movement in India and also in Asia. Over 60 women and few men attended the national conference. It was an effort to make women visible, to make their voices heard, and to elevate their theological and spiritual contributions for the transformation of church and society. This consultation attempted to discover a theological dimension in women's search for justice, to transform economic, political, social, and religious institutions, to give priority to the voices and concerns of those from whom human dignity is most effectively withheld. Women visioning together to discover a theology of humanhood, trusting in the affirmation that all shall be united in Christ. The outcome of this consultation was the publication of the book Towards the Theology of Humanhood, Women's Perspective in 1986. It was edited by Aruna Nyanadasant, one of the leading feminist theologians in India, who is still very, very active. The publication of the book was the groundbreaking effort for feminist theology movement in India. So that is one thing. Another, movement sprang up is we call it WINA. WINA means Women Institute for New Awakening. This is also not only for, regional, but this is also kind of a, ecumenical movement. When the UN declared 1975 and 1985 as a decade of women, many women came together and formed organizations to help women in different ways. WINA began in 1982 as an Indian network with Ethot Women. Publication of WINA, the Emerging Indian Women in 1984, a pioneering book on feminist theology. So they're also very much ecumenical, included Protestant and also the Catholic women are there in this process. The third movement is Indian Women in Theology, started in 2002 by women in higher theological education, researchers and theological teachers. And the aim is to provide a space for the articulation and expressions of women's voices, to organize seminars, workshops, and consultations, and to produce theological resource books from women's perspective. 2 books already published so far from this movement, and they are still active in doing things. So these are the different, theologizing process movement in India. Now, some of the outcome of these different movements is initial stage was to follow the Western feminist methods and methodologies like critique on patriarchy, gender, male-centered theology, Bible, and male's leadership in the church. That was in the beginning followed, especially in 1970s and 80s. Then another outcome is many women came forward for theological education. Third is many women entering into pastoral ministry and ordination of women took place in many of the church's organizations. Number 4, it produces women theologians in started articulation theologies from their own respective contexts since 1990s. And so we can see emergence of contextual feminist theologies taking place, considering their particular experiences of women, their ethnic, race, gender, socio-economic, cultural, and religious, and ecofeminist. And this is the way tribal women theologians are producing so many resource books, and also many things are going on in the context of tribal women, particularly in the Northeast. Establishment of women's studies in theological colleges, seminaries in the Senate of Sri Rampo College in the postgraduate and research levels, offering up to PhD in women's studies in theological research. Also integration of women's concerns in the theological curricula. And now doing theology on diverse issues like emergings, ecology, HIV and AIDS, persons with disability, LGBTQI, refugees, migrations, and many other emerging issues that women, feminist movement and theologizing process are concentrating upon. But we also have a lot of problems and challenges. In spite of all these different articulations in conscientization, leadership in the church and theological institutions for women is still a far dream. Many injustices when it comes to sharing of leadership because of the male structures in male's model of leadership, which is a big hurdle for many women, and so denied justice to many. Second, feminist consciousness in the grassroots levels are still, we are struggling to penetrate, and this is what we have. Women in theological education is still, yes, women are there, but many women cannot go because of the very church structures where preference for male candidates in recommendations and sponsorship is happening. Fourth, lack of networking among women in our Indian context is also there, no proper coordination. I think ATWI and other movements, connecting with other larger Asian or global context is also another very important issues. And the The fifth one is that because of the COVID-19, many more problems are coming up. Human trafficking, migrant labor worker, where women are the most victims, and so many things are there where we need to really, bring out our voices to bring justice. So many challenges are there that we need to really look for. So with that short brief, I want to end my sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Longkumer, for helping us learn and deepen about very empowering Indian feminist theological work. So now, everyone, you have been posting questions on our chat box, and now I turn to Dr. Krishnan Pear, who has been moderating the chat box, and to select a few questions for the panelists to answer.
Yeah, we have a lot of exciting questions. Some questions are directed to a particular panelist, and then some questions are more broad and need a collective, need a collaboration. So first question is, do you have any publication concerning women, female identified persons of different sexual orientations, such as lesbian, transgender, bisexual, and intersex? Any support offered to them? Because in Asia, in many countries in Asia, still lesbian, transgender, bisexual, and intersex women are being excluded by the heteronormative cultured societies and theologies, of course, in many local churches. So if you share any related theological work, that would be great. Shall we just read all the questions, or?
Yes, why don't we do that? We
Okay.
have about 20 minutes, so we can combine some questions.
Okay. Another question related to women's sexuality and women's human rights issues, especially when Reverend Grace Moon talked about CCA's work in the border areas, and the audience was surprised that during this COVID-19 pandemic, human trafficking has increased. So if you can share like a fuller picture of human trafficking in the Southeast Asian borders, and how CCA has been involved in like anti-human trafficking ministry, that was a question. And then another one for our all panelists. Would you also share what kind of barriers and challenges that you face and encounter? So perhaps then we can think about collaborative support for your work in any way we can. And then also, particularly in India, can you share any collaborative work or conversation among different theologians or different religious groups, and even the conversation between feminist theologians and secular, perhaps like a post-colonial feminist scholars? And also, a lot of people are interested in what kind of collaboration or solidarity work would be possible among you for different panelists. If that has happened already, that would be great. Or if you're planning to do any collaborative work among organizations represented by 4 panelists today. And one particular question is related to pastors' wives. Is there any attempt to liberate pastors' wives from their role, or are they highly respected and happy with their own role? That was another side of question. And then for Reverend Showin Chen, one audience asked whether it's possible to submit articles written in Chinese. And that was a question. And also someone was curious why the 2019 conference did not include South Korea. It's not my question, even though I'm South Korean. It's not a question. It's a question from the audience.
Thank you, Christine. A lot of questions for the 15, 18 minutes left. First, I think there are several questions I saw about the non-heterosexual women identifying people resources, how you support. I think it's a question to everyone. If you can share briefly, or you can type your answers in chat box in resources, that will be very helpful. Anybody wants to answer the question first?
Yeah, when it comes to transgender, or in short, we can call it as LGBTQI issue, what we are doing is in collaboration with the National Council of Churches in India, we have already developed a curriculum, even in the theological education, to be integrated as one of the papers, and this is what we are doing. And in the church levels also, we are conducting different seminars and workshops where we are including even people from all these different sexual orientations, and then we are doing it. But yes, many of the churches are very apprehensive about this, that they are not open, but this is the initiative that we are doing. Hopefully, after a few years, the churches will understand and accept it. But this is also a very sensitive issue in one way, that we are also working it. And we have produced collaboration with NCCI that some resource books have already produced in India.
So if you can share those resources, we can also share with the participants later through email or some other medium.
Definitely.
Yeah. Any other one to answer the question? Yes, Showin.
Yeah, I think for the In God's Image, we also published a issue. We invited the Pro One as the guest editor. The theme is queer theology. Yeah, this is also to help. This is also to try to encourage more people, including Asian women and others, to get to know who they are, and what it is. Yeah.
Dr. Yuen, I know that one of your anthology was Body and Sexuality. Is there any more your work?
Yeah, I think one or two. We don't have a particular, because the body and sexuality issue was EVA 2 or 3, I think. Yeah, I haven't joined EVA yet at that time, but I know some members of our group did write papers on queer theologies and LGBT issues. And I think the more recent one, the 21st century women still claiming her space, they also present on this topic. Yeah.
Thank you. Reverend Moon, do you have anything to add from CCA?
Although CCA hasn't published any books or booklets on this specific topic on LGBTQ issue, but in every meeting and consultation, in women's meeting and youth meeting, this LGBTQ is very much openly discussed and shared with the Asian participants. And also recently in last month, one of the prophetic diaconia and advocacy department hosted and conducted one webinar on the human sexuality issues and HIV and AIDS issues on the pandemic. And in that 3-day consultation, we discussed much about this human sexuality issue. Yes, and soon it will be published as a report book of this consultation.
Thank you. When it is available, please let us know so that we can also share. Another, consistent question was asked. All of your work was very much based on women's collaboration and networking, supporting one another. But the question was, if you here, panelists, your organizations collaborate more intentionally, the impact of work will be even greater. So I want you to engage with one another, how you can collaborate with one another for greater work. I think that was important question asked by several people here.
Yes, thank you. In that regard, I really appreciate and thankful to the organizers of this webinar to reconnect our Asian Women's Network in one place. And as I mentioned, in my presentation, in 80s and 90s, there were very much active involvement of Asian women's organization to meet together, to talk together, to share and cooperate each other. But somehow we lost that connection and precious legacy. And as a staff of regional ecumenical organization, one of the challenge I face here is that the strengthened denominationalism in Asia, especially in Asian context. So the churches and Christian communities prefer to come together more under the denominational umbrella rather than ecumenical umbrella. So the Lutheran churches, Presbyterian churches, and Baptist churches, for example, they form their own association, global association or regional association to meet together, but not with the other denominational traditions. So somehow, although somehow we talk about ecumenical spirit, unity, but besides, we used to build up our own mission compound. So, for example, when we organized the youth assembly 2 years ago, several member churches received similar invitation from various organizations on certain issue. When we organized youth assembly some years ago, the other organizations also organized youth meeting, big youth gathering in Asian context. So our members had to choose and select and prioritize where to send their youth members. So if we had some cooperative spirit, we could have more bigger and meaningful youth gathering rather than having separate meetings. So this kind of division and also lack of ecumenical spirit is what I face as a challenge. So that's why I stress and I'd like to highlight that we need to stand together in solidarity, and also we need to revitalize our cooperation and cooperative work among Christian women in Asia and beyond.
Thank you. Dr. Longkumer, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this is one of the important concerns that we all have, Asians, whether we come from different denominations or other things. Yes, there were problems in the past. Now, so we have, as Grace Mon has said, denominationalism, which is deeply rooted in the Asian churches. So different fellowship, other things are there, but I think as women theologians from Asia, can we, use this webinar as a starting point to collaborate, cooperate, organize more seminars and whatever? I think Zoom is providing a very good means without much expenditures. So this is the way. Why not we, start moving forward to collaborate, to coordinate together? We were failures in many ways in the past. I don't want to narrate that. How can we go forward from now? What are the projects that we should do? If we can plan that way, I don't have any ready-made answers, but together, if we can work together, collaborate together more through workshops or through seminars, even, book projects or whatever, I think many things we can do. That's my concerns. Thank you.
I agree very much. I think to cooperate on the website through this kind of webinar is a possible way. In the past, I think one of the challenge is about to organize Asian-wide conference also need lots of funding. So funding sources is always a challenge too, I think, to most of us. But through this online exchange, I think we can save money. No need to have much resources, but we can have more exchange and collaboration in the future. And I want to share some other challenge in our group too, because we are mostly Catholic women groups, and but we are also open to ecumenical members. So we from time to time we have some Protestant friends to join our conference, um, but we also have difficulty to identify um, Catholic women theologians in certain countries. Even in Korea, I think we have a difficulty. Yeah, maybe because of the language problem, or and some other reasons. So, and then also about publication. So in the past, most of our publications are published under Asian publisher. That's manageable. But since some members are teaching in university, they also have pressure, about what publication or journal articles they have to be published. So some may prefer to publish in other well-known publisher. So we have this kind of dilemma, how to choose our publisher too. But the main goal is to let more people know the work of women theologians. Yeah. So maybe you can also share with us some ideas.
Yeah, thank you. I hope this webinar is another new starting point of greater solidarity. A question answered was, during all of you said your organization is doing responsible work in COVID pandemic era, but particularly the question was asked for Reverend Moon, why during a pandemic human trafficking is increasing rather than decreasing?
Yes, as I mentioned, the COVID-19 is pushing women and young girls more into the poverty, and because of the lockdown in the society, they are losing their jobs, and also they don't have any means to earn their bread. So, and also because of the lockdown situation, there's more loosened attention and weakened security focus on the borderline in Asia. So that's why the traffickers are just targeting the poor girls and poor parents to sell their children to the forced labor market, and also the brothels in Asia and also in Europe. So nowadays, the open border between India and Nepal is one of the biggest gateways of human trafficking. So through this borderline with the traffickers, the young girls and children and young people are sold to worldwide nations, to the forced labor market and also the sex exploiting places. So this is another negative impact of COVID is shown in human trafficking increase in Asia. So CCA has been doing the EVOLVE program, the Combat All Forms of Virus Action Together. So so far we asked church women and church people to educate the trainers about the people's right, and also how can they be protected from this kind of vulnerable situation. So we encourage our church women and also church people to go down to the villages and train the church, community people, especially the parents, not to be tempted to send their children into the hands of traffickers. This is what we are doing, and also the advocate campaign and training program, awareness programs are being done by CCA and also with the constituency members. And also we need your prayer.
Yeah, thank you so much. Such unfortunate situation is happening. Reverend Chen, earlier I didn't see your hand up, so let me invite you to finish what you're.
Yeah, I would like to go back to the one we were just discussed and share. I fully agree with Limatula, Mary, and the Grace Moon's opinions on the 2 years ago, I took this position and it was located in Taiwan. Now, 2 years passed, and the AW office is gradually stable in Taiwan. So I'm also happy to, this morning, actually, I told Prelan, I learned a lot from Penatum from the last webinar, 35th anniversary. And this also, after joining this webinar, and three others of panelists also, we agree to have more collaborations together. So I think if you don't mind, after this webinar, I will write to 3 of you and see what we can do in the next year. What in my mind already is we can have a webinar of introducing feminist theological books, yeah, in Asia, yeah, and also many other kinds of webinars. So I think I would like to say thank you to Penatum, and also say thank you for everybody to have this agreement and understanding that we are going to do something for the solidarity of Asian women from now on.
Thank you so much, Reverend Chen. What you said really summed up that, you know, the feelings and ideas that many of us have here. And we have been up in our promised the time, and I thank each of you and also all the participants. And Panarum has a Facebook group and Twitter and YouTube channel, as we said earlier. So maybe some of us can continue to engage in this topic in our Facebook group too. So please join us. And we want to thank you for joining us. And please support also Panarum by your donation. You can do this online by visiting our website, panautumn.org. So again, I thank you everyone, and good night, and also have a great day in Asia. Thank you.